Hello and welcome to Mulch, with me, your host Rebecca Anning-Brown. This is a weekly podcast for flower farmers who want to build a confident flower farming practice that reflects the lifestyle that you want now and in the future. Each week I'll share conversation and tips to nurture and grow you and your flower farm. I'll open conversations that flower farmers find difficult to talk about, provide approaches that will help you to make decisions, chuckle at the idiosyncrasies of our work, and always be real and honest about my own work as a flower farmer. My goal is to help you to grow a curious, confident and grounded flower farming practice that flourishes as a business that you love and are proud to shout about. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you like what you hear, please do leave a review and share the podcast with your flower farming friends. It really does help to grow a confident and successful flower farming community. Hello and welcome back to Mulch, Season 2, Episode 3. How are you? I'm not sure where you are in the world, but it's cold here. It did warm up briefly after the snow and things have started to thaw, but it was frosty again overnight. The ground was hard, and so for the most part, working our land is a no-no. We've done a lot of tidying in the greenhouse. It's had a clean and a sort. The tunnels had a clean and a sort, and things have been moved around. Things have been exited that have done very well and don't need to be in there anymore. When it warmed up briefly, we watered inside our tunnel gently because we knew it would get colder again, and I'm desperate to do a proper water once we have consistent temperatures again next week that are above kind of 2 or 3 degrees. And a feed as well, because we've got flowering stems on our butterfly ranunculus, which is absolutely incredible and very exciting. Anyway, we are heading into week 3 of the Flower Farming Business School online, and I thought I'd take a slight segue today. So today we're going to talk about board games. I love a board game, and it's probably because when I was a child, nobody would play board games with me. So now I don't force my children to play, but I enjoy a good game with my husband, and whenever the children are willing, it fills me with absolute joy. We have lots of board games that I really enjoy. Many are gifts because people know that I like to play a good game. But some of them are games that I've bought too. Today's episode is about making the links between some of those board games and the ways that we work here at Silver Grey Foliage on our flower farm. Because often I think it's difficult to understand how we've got from A to B. And the answer is that we use lots of different methods depending on the circumstance. And sometimes we use a combination of methods. And I'm really hopeful that using the board games as an analogy will help you to understand some of those ways. So the first board game that I'd like to tell you about is called Ticket to Ride. Now, I love this game. My kids are really bored of it. My husband will play with me happily, but Ticket to Ride is my favourite game. Essentially, the aim of the game is to get the most points. You get your points by making train lines and joining those train lines together to make entire journeys. It's really fun. It is fun because the routes that you get are never the same. So there are a set of cards and they're shuffled, long routes and short routes. It's fun because it takes a while to build your routes, and it's actually often difficult to work out what other people's routes are because you don't have to start at the beginning and finish at the end of your journey. You can kind of do it piecemeal, so a little bit at the beginning, a little bit in the middle, a little bit at the end, join some bits together, and so on and so forth. Each route has a different value, and points mean prizes. It's a game about putting in place the key foundations for me and then filling in the gaps. So that's often how I'll put my journeys together. And it really means that you can only see where I'm going once all of the links and all of the steps have been completed. So because each journey is split between cities, for example, you might need to go from London to Madrid. And you would do that via Paris and south of France, and then into Spain. And there are lots of different sections. And because it doesn't matter, as I've explained, which order you do them in, I will create or try and fulfill the journeys that are really, really important. So either because they're short or because there's only one train line, so only one person can own that route. And I will try and fill those gaps first and then everything else. Because once I know that I've owned, chosen the routes that I consider to be the most important, the others, there's always another way around. There's always an alternative route, or you can add a station and jump a space. So it's really a game about strategy and about patience and about plotting and not racing to get from beginning to end, because that's rarely the easiest way to win. The second game is beautiful. It's called Lost Spells. It's a card game. It's utterly stunning. It's poetic. It includes lots of verse. It's a memory game of sorts. And so it's about being able to hold in your mind or to keep a visual record of where things are so that you can match your cards and reach where you want to go. And because it's a game that's about your sight and about the sounds that link the poetic verse, my daughter loves to read the poems out to me. It's a game that really attracts your senses, and it absorbs you, not because you can win or lose, but because you really want to win some of the cards just because they're stunning, or just so you can read a poem that you love the sound of and the onomatopoeia or whatever English language or grammar kind of technique has been used. I love it. And it's quite peaceful as well, so that's a really nice kind of Sunday afternoon sort of game when everybody's just chilling out before the chaos of the week happens again. The third game that I wanted to tell you about today is a magnet game. Now, interestingly, I saw this first on Instagram, but it's a game that was bought for us for Christmas by one of our relatives. And it's about finding your space. So essentially there is a ring of string and there are some really strong magnets. Each player has the same number of strong magnets. And the aim is not to attract other magnets when you put yours down. And they all have to go inside the ring. So for me, it's a game that's about creating islands of safety. It's a game that's about stretching the boundaries, because you can put your magnets right up against the boundary and you can move the boundary, that's within the rules of the game, to be able to get your magnet down without attracting any others. It's also a game that's about your appetite for risk, because obviously the closer you put the magnets, the more likely you are to attract the other magnets. Now, when you attract other magnets, you have to pick them up, which means you have more in your hand, which means that the aim of the game is to put all the magnets down so that you have none left. The more you attract, the harder that is to do. So that element of risk is about your appetite for it, how close you're willing to go. It's also about your willingness to test and try and risk failing to be able to learn more and to try again. And then it's about your determination. I was really tempted to use the word resilience, but I didn't like the word resilience because it, for me, in my previous roles, has had a connotation of needing to try harder or needing to tolerate difficult situations or needing to learn to tolerate difficult situations, which for me is not what resilience is about. It's about inner strength as much as anything else. So this week on Our Flower Farm, I have sat at my desk again, more than I would like to. And so I got up from my desk and stood at the wall instead. And I really wanted to make good progress with one of the exercises that we have been doing with the Flower Farming Business School online. And that's the exercise around making a clear list of our availability for the season. It is split into a number of parts to make it more accessible, and one part is a bit like Ticket to Ride, because it's an exercise of reviewing and remembering the beauty of the work that we do. And it's an exercise about understanding the senses that each of those colours and scents evokes across the season. However, the part that really draws it to Ticket to Ride is that, in part, when we're planning our availability, I am mapping out the season from beginning to end, so the journey where I want to go from and to. And I was identifying the really key flowers that we either have or we want to grow again, depending on our field audit and things like that, so that we have definitely got the white and the blush focals and fillers, for example, that we know that our customers will want. And then it's about filling in the gaps to make sure that we have enough fluff, enough focals, enough foliage to be able to entice and delight our customers. And the final part of our planning, our availability, is about staying in our own lane. So this is a really fundamental part of how I've designed the Flower Farming Business School online. We start with 3 weeks of planning because it's a quiet time of the year, and the second quarter will be slightly different, but 3 weeks of planning that are really about doing things our own way. Because as we continue to grow our flower farm, Silver Grey Foliage, I feel enough pressures, and I know that you do too. And those pressures are a mixture of external pressures and personal pressures. And I don't want to focus on that anymore by spending too much time discussing the ins and outs of my decision making with other people, other growers. And so I've been carving out my plan. I've been creating our growing availability list in isolation so that it's based on what I need to reach our business plan financial aims, and through that, what I need to supply my customers, which I know will in some ways be similar and in other ways different to everyone else who's working with us at the Flower Farming Business School online. And so it's really important to me that there is social contact, because the connections that we make, the people that we make friends with, that we work alongside, that we learn from, are an incredibly important part of anything that we do. But one of the reasons that we all know that we struggle with overwhelm is that kind of shiny flower syndrome, or the new idea from a new plan borrowed from a new grower syndrome. And we're so busy flitting around from place to place, trying to decide what to grow or how to grow it, or whether we should change how we're going to grow it or change which plan, because we're watching what everybody else is doing, that sometimes it makes it harder and more overwhelming than it needs to be. So there are social elements to the Business School Online. Last week we had our first live meeting, and tomorrow, which is Friday, we will be doing our first Friday morning celebration, which is all about celebrating our wins with each other. And it's all about making sure that we start to write a plan for the week ahead, so that our weekend allows us some time to rest and some time for family and friends, and maybe some pottering in the field or whatever else you plan to do. But importantly, that plan for the week ahead will be set so that there's a bit of free space, and we start our week knowing that we're not having to do planning. We know where we're going and what we're going to be doing. And so there is some social time, and there is time to connect and to motivate each other and to celebrate our own wins so that we're motivating ourselves. But that's very different to a Facebook group or similar, where we're observing the practices of others and maybe asking questions about what we should be growing or where we should be putting things. All of this will come. But starting from a point of this is what I want and this is what I need gives you a position of confidence that flows from the business plan that you've worked to create. So those are 3 games that impact how I've worked this week. The first is about beauty and scent, and that's about the choices that we make and our flowers, so that's the lost spells. The second is about planning and strategy and putting in our foundations first and then filling in the rest of our bouquet essentially around that. And the third is about the magnets and trying not to attract other magnets, actually trying to grow a business that fits and suits and leans towards the business plan that we've made for our own space. I hope that that's really helpful to you as you think about the start of your season and as you head towards the fun parts, the sowing, the growing, the planting, and the cutting. I can't wait. I'm really excited. But first, the plans come. What else do you need to know from me? Well, there are always things to share. The first thing is that if this is the main place that you meet with me, then you may not know that we put some social media prompts out at the beginning of the week. They're free for you to download. And there's a link for those social media prompts in the show notes. The reason that I'm telling people about this isn't because of the download itself. It's more that when you have a look at it, not only have I suggested some prompts, I've given you the reasons why it's important. And hopefully that will give you the body and the context and the motivation to share the who, what, where, why, when, the introductions around yourself and your business over the weeks to come before the season starts. The second thing is that if you would like help to sort out your own business plan for your own flower farm and to use this as a basis for all of your work and your decisions across the year, then you can now get the business planning module as a standalone module. It includes 6 videos, 6 downloads to help you with 6 videos and 6 separate downloads to help you to get this done. There's a link for that in the show notes as well, or you can head to our website, which is www.silvergreyfoliage.com, and you'll find all the Flower Farm education stuff under the heading Education on the top menu. One of our flower farmers even said that the business planning was fun. Not only did it help her to get it done, but she said it made it fun and enjoyable to do. I'm going to take that as a real badge of honour, because I know I don't enjoy all the planning and I really just want to get on with getting my hands muddy. But thankfully our ground is frozen, which means that there's another barrier to me just heading outside and more encouragement to sit down, avoid distraction and get it done now. Number 3 possibly, that you need to know is that there is a growing waiting list for people who want to join us at the Flower Farming Business School online in quarter 2. The syllabus for the 12 weeks of quarter 2 will be different with quarter 1 because the things that we need to be doing as flower farmers are different. And you can join that waiting list using the link in our show notes. Okay. And then the fourth thing I can't count today that you need to know is that the Flower Farmers Planner is available to buy again on its own. So a few more have headed out across the UK and across Europe this week. They are available to post around the world, and there's an international option when it comes to postage. And they come with a group of videos. So the Flower Farmers Planner, it's undated, so you can start it at any time of the year. And it comes with a group of videos that are designed to help you understand how we envisage you'll use the planner. Evidently, you can ignore this completely, but once you understand the suggested approach, I hope that it'll be easier for you to adapt it and get the most out of it for you on your flower farm. I think that's enough from me for today. I would love to know what you think of this episode. Please do review Mulch as a podcast. It makes all the difference in the world and makes it more accessible to other flower farmers. Please share this episode and maybe your favourite board game in your stories on Instagram or wherever you do your social media posting. And yeah, I'll be back next week with another episode about flower farming in practice. And until then, have a wonderful week. Rebecca.